Your consulting and training page, basically these two sections, even though they have different content, they work the same. So if I look at the training page, yes, it's has some different information, but for the most part, it's set up as far as the admin goes, the WordPress section goes, it's set up exactly the same. So I'm going to kind of focus mostly on consulting and how we add these bits of information, but understand that that works the same for both sections, and I'm going to bounce around both areas so you can kind of see how that works. All right, with that said, let's go ahead and go to the admin, and what I want to point out is this element section. And this element section basically is an area that you create each individual sections for the front end. Now I know in the beginning this is going to be a little confusing. I apologize, but once I kind of go through this a couple of times and kind of show you how all this is set up, it's going to make a little bit more sense. But back to the elements part, this element section is each one of these areas. So this, for instance, consulting, we have 2 assessments. This section is an element. This one down here is an element. This is an element. Same thing for the training area. E-courses element, mentoring element, workshops element. Alright, now real quick I want to point these click to see our courses, click to purchase now. These actually are supposed to be buttons, like a styled button that looks like, let's see, I think the pricing page is something like this. This is one of the minor little kinks I have to work out, so the time of this video it doesn't look like how it's supposed to look. But I promise we'll fix that as soon as possible, more than likely, but by the time you watch this video it's fixed. Alright, so basically with each one of these being an element, each one of these sections, we basically insert that section, that element into each page how we want to insert it. So what I want to go to first is the elements area. And right now we have these 6 basic ones. So just to I'm going to show you one that's already built, and then we'll build one from scratch so you can see how it works. So let's click assessments. You'll see the title, obviously assessments. You'll see some basic content, the description, your list, your ordered list of points, bullet points, and some more text and description down here. All right. Next thing you'll see over on the right is you'll see, and this is a misspelling, and we'll fix that. It should say number, obviously. It says 2, and then we have some buttons and some address fields that we can fill out. So first thing is this number 2. And what that is, let's see, does this one have it? Nope, consulting should have it. Is this right here? This is your number 2. So if I change, for instance, if I come in here, I make this 5. Refresh over here, we see that we have 5. Alright, so that's how you change that. Below that is the buttons and the contact bar. The contact bar is actually reserved for your consulting section, and that is this bar right here, this gray bar. Obviously you don't have those on the training areas. The training area has the buttons right here, these 2 links right here, and those are filled out right here. So if you fill them out, then they can actually obviously go click somewhere. They want to click to the purchase page, or you want to click them to the courses page, or wherever you're sending them. So depending on what section you want to go where, you're going to fill out that bar. So obviously if you're doing a training page, you're not going to fill out the contact bar, and vice versa. If you're doing a consulting page, you're not going to fill these out. So right now assessments we have showing up on consulting, so these are blank. All right. And then for your contact page, that, and actually let me get a little more specific on that one, that is this right here. Where are you forwarding the person that clicks this? This is separate, and I'm going to come back to this real quick. But this, where are you going to have them go to? I would say consulting, or excuse me, contact page. Maybe you're thinking something different. So I'll pop contact in there, update this thing. Now if I come back to consulting and I click this, I'll go to the contact page. Now, the email part that we have in these bars, right here, that's set in the options panel, and this, if I click this, this is going to launch my email client. So, your Gmail or your Yahoo or Mail, your Mac Mail or whatever, that's what this, and this is one setting, and that is under theme options, under contact. So why are we going to get there? We're already under the general tab, and then we want to find contact, and then this right here. It says training. This should say consulting. This is my mistake. I will correct this. Basically, you just enter your email address that the mail is going to get clicked. The mail is going to get forwarded to when someone clicks that that launch mail icon. All right. So back to elements. Now we were working on assessments. And just the recap, we went over adding the content. We went over adding the number. That's the bulleted list, or excuse me, the main bullet number. This one right here. And we covered what each one of these does. So let's go ahead and just do one for scratch. We'll do new element. I'll just call this new element test. Okay. Paste in some content. Maybe I make this bold, I don't know. I want to do some bullet points now, so what I'll do is I'll click this right here, and for instance, some stuff. Some more stuff. Alright, give this number 7, and then we'll just do this. Publish. Okay, so now we've added a new one, we saved it, so how do we get it to show up? How do we get it to appear on this page or on this page? Well, what we want to do is go to Pages. Whoops, didn't mean to click that. We want to go to, where are we? Let's do Consulting. And basically how this works is this little line of code shows up every element, every section. Alright? So right now, this is what we see. 1, 2, 3 sections. Alright? So I'm going to actually delete this out so you can see from scratch. What I want to do is choose this icon right here and choose which ones I want to show up. So if you understand assessments, let's just say assessments, e-courses, mentoring, and the new element tests are supposed to show on the consulting page. Those are the ones that I choose. So assessments, e-courses, mentoring, and we'll do this one. Select them and then insert it. It makes the code for us. So that's all we have to do. I'll update it. Come back and refresh. So I thought I refreshed. And there's the new one I created, right? 7. Our little block down here and everything else. So basically, not to bore you, but just so you understand what these numbers are, you might be wondering, is WordPress, because it's a database, it needs to ID these pages. How does it know what page is what? Of course, you call these consulting, or you give it whatever name you give it, but these names can be constantly changed. So the database needs some uniform way of identifying these pages, these sections, and it does that by what's called an ID number. So that's what each one of these is. So 78 is the ID number for assessments, and e-courses is 89, and 90 is whatever one it was. 294 is the one I just made for the test. Alright, and if you look up here, right where my mouse is, 72. That is the ID for consulting page. So everything's ID'd. So instead of saying, hey, go figure out what your ID number is, which clearly would be too much work, we do what's called a short code, which is this thing, and you choose the name of the page. If you hold, well, I have a Mac, so Command I can skip and do different ones. Maybe it's Control or something for a PC, I'm not sure. I can choose it, and then it gives me the IDs. That way, it's uniform, it's doing it for me. Okay, a little confusing, but I had to explain why we do that. All right, and real quick before I get out of here, same thing for training. If you're going to set up training, it works the exact same way. If you go to the page and find training, you'll see it's an insert with the ID numbers. All right, and if you ever need to edit one of these specific ID numbers, you just find it in Elements. So, maybe you want to edit e-courses. Well, I'll go to Elements, I'll find e-course, and I'll make my edit, and then save it, and then that's that. I don't have to go and reinsert it, the shortcode into that page. All right, that will do it.